They're still awake. Jeez, that is freaking amazing. It's 3 o'clock. You guys are still got energy. Cool. You are in Ballroom C. This is the anything track. I really hope that's why you came here. It's been 2 days. If you're still confused, I'm sorry. Map reading lessons are next week. Couple things. Don't stand in my fire exits. I will have people drag you out of there. Come on in, we got plenty of seating. Second thing, the phones, silence, turn them off, whatever. I will come out there, I'm wearing boots, I will stomp them. We had a bloody incident yesterday, we don't need a repeat. Fair enough? Awesome. All right, so what's it like when you can't trust the things you're seeing? Well, next speaker's gonna tell you all about it. Give it up for April.
It's not really me. This is a hologram, don't worry. So welcome to Deepfakes. Today we're going to talk about porn, privacy, and politics.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right. Or Ben Carson is in the sunken place. Or, how about this? Simply, President Trump is a total and complete dip. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. It's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information is going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of up dystopia. Thank you. And stay woke, bitches.
Okay, so for 200,000 years, humans have relied on our eyes and ears to separate truth from lies and fact from fiction. Even if we ignore the rise of fake news, technology built using deep learning is on the verge of making it impossible to know if what we are seeing and hearing is real or fake. Video has historically been a way to validate and attribute an action to a person. This surveillance still, just before the Boston Marathon bombing, helped identify the suspect who was later apprehended. From news to CCTV images, photos and videos have played an important role in informing, educating, entertaining, and helping us to deliver justice since their invention. Lately, the power of the image to show us the truth has been increasingly challenged. It was just a single year after the invention of the photograph until the very first faked photo was taken. It was snapped by a French photography pioneer named Hippolyte Bayard, who was to Louis Daguerre, the inventor of the daguerreotype, what Tesla was to Edison. Daguerre and Bayard both invented photographic processes, the first ever, but Daguerre released his process first via some drama at the French Academy of Sciences. So out of protest and/or spite, Bayard created the first hoax photo ever. It was titled Self-Portrait as a Drowned Man. He was, of course, alive, but the photo, along with a caption on the back, meant to convince people he had committed suicide over the whole ordeal. A little overdramatic, if you ask me. As the first known example of a fake photo, it illustrated two qualities of images. First, they can depict the world in a manner that closely mimics the way we see it. Second, that since their invention, they've been staged or altered in ways that remain consistent with the ways that we see. This consistency is what makes them all the more believable. A portmanteau of deep learning and fake, the concept of a deepfake refers to the digital manipulation of sound, images, or video to impersonate someone or make it appear that a person did something, and to do so in a manner that is increasingly realistic to the point that the unaided observer cannot detect the fake. Deepfakes are the scariest possible fake news of the present and near future. Apps for creating content often leverage Google's publicly available TensorFlow AI framework. But can deepfakes provide any actual benefit to society? Deepfakes go far beyond photoshopping. They're a moving, speaking, realistic rendition of a person that can be recorded for later use, or performed live even. They spread virally. They're entertaining and controversial. In December 2017, a user named Deepfakes posted realistic-looking, explicit videos of famous celebrities on Reddit. This was the first known use of the new type of deep learning face swap technology. The user Deepfakes found a way to insert celebrities' faces into adult movies. Lawmakers and intelligence officials, they worry more about bogus videos that go beyond adult films, though, that go beyond parody and start to be used to threaten national security, interfere in elections, and perform other attacks against the public. Early CGI in movies was often clumsy and obviously fake. CGI also required skilled video editors that could spend countless hours trying to achieve decent results. The concerning breakthrough with deepfakes versus CGI, though, is that with deep learning, anybody with a GPU and some AI training can create believable fake videos using input derived from social media. It was only a matter of time before image-altering technology became so sophisticated that it would be difficult to tell if a computer-generated image is not real. In 1970, Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori, there's a lot of names in this that I got to pronounce here. He proposed a theory in an essay called the Uncanny Valley. The theory was the more human a robot acted or looked, the more endearing it would be to a human. However, at some point, the likeness to humans seems too strong and yet somehow too different. It comes across as a very strange human being, at which time the acceptance of that, it drops suddenly, and it changes into a really powerful negative reaction. The valley evokes a number of primal responses in humans, particularly revulsion, and these responses may apply to sound as well. For some, moving objects trigger a stronger response, which is why a corpse is creepy, but a moving corpse is even creepier. But the algorithms providing deepfakes are gaining precision, signaling the end of the valley. And overcoming the valley is ultimately one of the requirements for believability of the deepfake videos. A new technique called retiming can synthesize extremely high-quality deepfakes using a recurrent neural network. It learns the mapping from the raw audio features of the mouth shapes, and given the mouth shape at each time instant, it creates high-quality mouth texture. It composites that with proper 3D posing, and it matches it to change what the subject appears to be saying. The approach produces photorealistic results, which may help deepfakes reach beyond the valley. Deepfakes rely heavily on facial detection, but this technology is not new. It's called the Viola-Jones algorithm, and it's something you've probably seen in point-and-shoot cameras. Machines have been doing this for years, but what's new is the ability to map two faces and create a composite of both. And while a deepfake can be created from hundreds or even thousands of still images, it's much easier to pick a handful of videos than it is to find hundreds of images at just the right angle and just the right lighting. We've seen similar real-time technology implemented in apps like Snapchat in the form of augmented reality filters. In real time, the app maps your face and overlays something else. This is very similar to the tech behind a deepfake, except the output's not very realistic, and it's not believable, and it quite often shows glitches. This is what it looks like to a machine when it's learning how to create the faces of John Oliver and Jimmy Kimmel, both of whom have been the subject of numerous deepfake examples. Both of them are, of course, purveyors of and fans of parody, but TV studios use consistent lighting, and there are thousands of hours of both Oliver and Kimmel, all with perfectly lit environments for training an algorithm. So at this point, no one's probably surprised that this all started on Reddit. Like VHS and other technologies became popular through porn. Nick Cage and Steve Buscemi are popular in deepfakes. And world leaders are frequently featured in parody deepfake videos. So some technical stuff. The deepfakes are generally made from still photos, and they take hours, days, or weeks of processing to become better. They tend to superimpose the face of one person onto someone else. Now, deep video portraits are a little different. They're made using a source video that features an actor. This is what we saw in the Obama video at the beginning. This is sometimes known as video puppetry. The main differences are the source data type, is it images or video, and whether you intend to preserve the person or replace the person in the output. Using videos as a source rather than photos is much more realistic because you're not changing the face of the target. You're just manipulating the original face. For the purposes of this talk, we're just going to call all of this deepfakes, though. Some famous examples. Peter Cushing, the actor that played Grand Moff Tarkin in the original Star Wars from 1977, died in 1994. In Star Wars Rogue One, Tarkin is played by actor Guy Henry, who wore a facial performance rig to map his face onto a digital 3D model face. The 3D model was made of a scan from a mold of Cushing's face that was made to create a special effects face prosthesis for a 1984 movie called Top Secret. Rogue One required frame-by-frame editing by ILM. It took 18 months to complete. All that time and work resulted in a hyper-realistic rendition of Tarkin for the film, but the effort to create adequate realism for a high-definition film versus a 640 by 480 pixel compressed video is very different. German Chancellor Angela Merkel was face-swapped with Donald Trump in this low-resolution video. It's rather poor quality for a deepfake, but it's an example of world leaders being manipulated in video. Why is it doing that? Following Godwin's law, Argentinian President Mauricio Macri was face-swapped with Hitler, another example of political commentary and manipulation. Tools exist today that let you type in text and generate a video of an actual person saying the typed words. While the techniques used to achieve this are complex, using the tool is frighteningly simple. Videos generated by one tool were shown to a group of 138 people. 60% believed the fake videos were real, and the same group was able to identify real videos only 80% of the time. Look at how seamlessly the video we're about to see changes from Bill Hader with Bill Hader's face to Bill Hader with Tom Cruise's face.
Right, guys, and then Tom Cruise walks in, and even those guys are like, "Whoa!" And he's super stoked to be there, you know, just like, "Yeah, oh, boom!" You know, like he's like, "Wow!" He's just immediately excited when he walks into a room, and so he comes over and he sits next to me, and I think he had been briefed on some of the supporting guys, but he was like trying to place me, you know. So he sat down next to me, he's like, I love your work. And I went, oh, thanks, I love your work too, Tom Cruise. You know, like, thanks.
So with so many possibilities, the rise of deepfakes has only just begun. Will bullies torment fellow students? Will political dissidents impact elections or start a war? Let's talk about the implications, good and bad. Is this an attack? Yes and no. It can be. Deepfakes can also be protected free speech and or parody. Your likeness is vulnerable if you've ever posted on social media or visited a publicly monitored place. Like any weapon, as we know in the hacker community, a tool can be used for good or evil. Blogger Alan Zucconi said it well. Every time a new technology appears, we need to question the impact it will have on us and on the people around us. We cannot rely on governments and laws for guidance, as they are notoriously ineffective and inefficient at keeping up with the pace of progress. While some people would like to see any face-swapping technology banned, that's not going to resolve the issue. Virtually everyone is vulnerable, but public figures and celebrities especially are. No one is immune. Even if the target does not have a social media presence on Platform X, there's a reasonable chance that someone else may have uploaded a photo that has their face in it that will reveal the needed input. Or if you've been in a public place, of course. The internet never forgets. This brings us to consent. On this topic, adult film performer Grace Evangeline said about deepfakes, one important thing that always needs to happen is consent. Consent in private life as well as consent on film. Creating fake scenes of celebrities takes away their consent. It's wrong. Conversely, the original Redditor known as Deepfakes said, every technology can be used with bad motivations and it's impossible to stop that. The main difference is how easy it is to do that by everyone. It's not a bad thing for more average people to engage in machine learning research. Two very valid arguments. Regardless of consent, this can't really be stopped. Business Insider said that deepfake videos exist in a legal limbo, making it difficult for victims to track down perpetrators and remove content. Some experts think that it's a First Amendment issue. Some think it might fall under defamation, identity theft, or fraud. Another view from Scarlett Johansson, she said that trying to stop people making deepfake videos of her is a lost cause. Quote, "Nothing can stop someone from cutting and pasting my image or anyone else's onto a different body and making it look as eerily realistic as desired. The fact is that trying to protect yourself from the internet and its depravity is basically a lost cause." She added one of my favorite quotes ever: "The internet is a vast wormhole of darkness that eats itself." Love it. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, even Reddit, and Pornhub have attempted to thwart misinformation and personalization abuse when found. However, deepfakes, or live deep video broadcasts, can evade both human and machine detection. Motherboard has made a bold claim that there is no tech solution to deepfakes, but as we'll discuss later, researchers don't agree. To thwart platform sharing of deepfakes, you must first detect it. Fake video in RAW format has telltale signs of alteration within the pixels, but sites like YouTube don't store every pixel. When its quality is lowered during upload and conversion, some evidence is erased, but some artifacts remain, like glitches, head movement errors, or unusual blinking patterns. The more times a photo is uploaded and downloaded, the processing it goes through makes altered pixels harder to detect. Detection is such a critical issue that DARPA is halfway through a 4-year effort to create deepfake image detection tools via the Media Forensics Project to identify deepfakes. Recently, Facebook, Microsoft, and multiple top universities have launched a challenge that will begin in late 2019 with the release of a data set of faces to accepted competitors. $10 million in grants and awards are available to participants. The test mechanisms enables teams to score their model's effectiveness against one or more black box test sites. This is being done to create new ways of detecting and preventing media manipulated via AI. Researchers believe that since realistic deepfakes are ultimately generated by an algorithm, they can be detected and their provenance verified. Biometric detection is an interesting way of looking at this. It can be analyzed by algorithms to look at the characteristics of people in videos. Are they breathing at the right rate? Is the pulse in the forehead the same as the pulse in the neck? Does the pitch and frequency of the voice seem appropriate? And is the person blinking normally? What does this mean? Machines may have to save us from machines, basically. We may have to provide training data labeled as fake or real to AI because algorithms can, in theory, learn to detect fakes more easily than we can. However, if you can create a neural network that will be able to tell a real image from a fake one, you can train another network to defeat it. This is like running a virus through antivirus. This leads us to generative adversarial networks, or GANs. The creators of deepfakes use the same GANs that create deepfakes to discover how to beat the deepfakes. Here's another attack scenario. Easy-to-use tools for manipulating perception and falsifying reality are being used right now for automated laser phishing. It's the latest social engineering tactic that makes manual spear phishing and uses AI to scan open source intelligence or OSINT data points like social media and craft false but believable messages from people we know. AI-based impersonation attacks are just the beginning of what could be major headaches for businesses and organizations in the future. Criminals used commercially available voice-generating AI software to impersonate the boss of a German parent company that owns a UK-based energy firm using phishing or voice phishing. The British CEO, hearing the familiar slight German accent of his boss, suspected nothing. The fraudsters boldly posed as the German CEO twice. The second time, the British CEO refused to make the payment. Now imagine if the request had come from a video, a deepfake, perhaps in the form of video puppetry over FaceTime or some other type of video chat. Do you think he would have made the second transfer? Another real-world scenario where realistic fakes have impacted politics is called polity simulation. Increasingly believable AI-powered bots are able to effectively compete with real humans for legislator attention because it's too difficult to tell the difference. Stitched together content culled from text, audio, and social media profiles are used to steal identities and make phone calls or post videos to affect change. More than 2 million bot accounts flooded the FCC's open comment systems to amplify the call to repeal net neutrality. Researchers concluded that automation used natural language processing, or NLP. These obscured legitimate comments and undermined the authenticity of the entire comment system, and we all know where that led. The Washington Post found users on discussion boards and private chats that are claiming to make videos by request of friends or enemies or past lovers, etc. One user in a Discord chat room said they can make a pretty good video of a girl they went to high school with using around 380 pictures scraped from her Instagram and Facebook accounts. The US has no right to be forgotten, but companies like Google have agreed to delink such videos. It's essential for targets to respond with lightning speed. Individuals should take screenshots to download the fake video, call an attorney and the police, and then begin the process of removal. There are civil laws that apply, like intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation, but generally it's hard to prove intentional harm from videos like this. The main law that protects sharing platforms is called the Communications Decency Act, or CDA. It was passed in 1996 as one of the first attempts to regulate explicit content on the internet. CDA Section 230 says platforms like Facebook, and we've seen this happen a number of times since then, are immune from liability for the conduct of their users and are able to profit off of users' behavior and posts. Of course, criminals don't follow laws, and US laws don't apply to anyone outside the United States. So the EFF, or Electronic Freedom Foundation, purports we don't need new laws for faked videos, we already have them. The theory is if a deepfake is used for criminal purposes, then criminal laws apply, such as extortion. If deepfakes are used to harass, harassment laws apply. There may be no need to make new specific laws about deepfakes in either of these situations. And if there's copyright infringement, copyright laws apply. Face swapping by itself is not illegal, although you could be dabbling in copyright infringement if you're using videos made by others. The use of someone else's face without their consent violates personal right of publicity, which covers the use of their image or identity. And using this technology to create non-consensual adult content is technically not a crime yet, but it could fall into a category of revenge porn. And of course, face swapping underage people into those kinds of scenes is definitely a crime for obvious reasons. So who owns the copyright for a created deepfake? It's kind of hard to answer this question because it falls into that legal gray area. It's reasonable to believe that face swapping could be treated like any other video editing process under the law. It means that if you own all the copyrights for the original footage, then you'll also own the copyright for the newly face swapped video. Most countries allow copyright enforcement to be avoided for the purpose of caricature, parody, or imitation. There's no reason to believe that this will not be the case for face swap videos. Let's talk about ethics. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, so Carrie Fisher not only gave her ILM her blessing to digitally insert her younger self in Rogue One, but she was actually able to see the result prior to her death. And she, quote, loved it. ILM wanted to make sure they did this right, both in terms of Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin. Ripped from recent headlines, even obviously faked videos can potentially reach millions of people. And per CDA 230, Facebook let a video of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi that was manipulated to make it appear as though she was drunk stay on its platform. YouTube, on the other hand, opted to remove it. It was legal to do so in both cases, but was either action ethical? Did Facebook interfere in reality, or did YouTube infringe on free speech? The combination of powerful open source tools, our rapidly devolving ability to discern truth from fake news, and the way social media can turn viral has set us up for serious consequences. In the last 2 years, Reuters had doubled the number of people who verify video content and spends time training them on how to spot deepfakes. All content Reuters published is verified by humans, and it uses tech to help, like cross-referencing Google Maps locations or reverse image searching. Reuters says that in terms of fake videos, it's not enough to debunk it, you have to authenticate it as well. So what could go wrong? Advanced and well-resourced adversaries will further develop deepfake tools so they can launch character assassinations against key figures, blackmail critical infrastructure personnel, distract and divert media attention, discredit ideological opponents, force conflict between communities, cast doubt on legitimate evidence, taint meaningful discussions, waste investigators' resources, or otherwise seize control of the narrative by replacing reality with a tailored illusion. Imagine a fake parent who calls a child and says they'll be picked up today, describes the person, and the child is then kidnapped by the person. A bully fakes a video of one of their victims doing something embarrassing. Undermining a rival's relationship with fake evidence of an affair, so-called revenge porn, of course, ransomware or blackmail using fake videos to extract money or confidential information from individuals who have reason to believe that disproving the video will be hard. Regulations could be decimated even if the videos are ultimately exposed as fakes. Harm will spread rapidly, but the technical rebuttals and corrections do not spread as quickly. Fake videos could feature public officials taking bribes, uttering racial slurs, or engaging in lascivious acts. And they could be released the night before an election. Soldiers could be shown murdering innocent civilians in a war zone, precipitating waves of violence or strategically hampering a war effort. A police officer could be shown shooting an unarmed man while shouting racial slurs. Emergency officials could be announcing an impending missile strike on LA or an emergent pandemic in New York, provoking panic. An audio clip revealing criminal behavior by a candidate could be released and not discredited before it's the night of an election, for example. These examples all emphasize how well executed and well-timed deepfake might generate significant harm in a particular instance, whether the damage is to physical property and life or to the integrity of an election and government. The spread of deepfakes could erode the trust necessary for democracy to function effectively, as the public trusts its government less and less. There's another consequence of educating the public about deepfakes. Researchers call it the liar's dividend. People will become skeptical of all videos, including real ones. This will allow people who actually do bad things to claim that they didn't and escape accountability by blaming it on a deepfake. What does this mean for court cases and digital evidence? This means reasonable doubt in virtually every place where video and audio is concerned. Therefore, does video presented in court eventually equate to hearsay? It's not hard to imagine the rise of a profitable new dystopian service, immutable authentication trails. The idea is a person who is sufficiently interested in protecting themselves against deepfakes, or whose employer feels this way, may be willing to pay for a service that comprehensively tracks some or all of the following: their movements, electronic communications, in-person communications, and surrounding visual circumstances. The vendor providing the service to be successful would have to develop a significant and sufficient reputation for the immutability and comprehensiveness of its data. It might then have its own arrangements with media platforms, allowing it to debunk, perhaps very rapidly, emergent deepfakes impacting its clients. This vendor would have a significant amount of power. Whatever the benefits, the social cost of such a service would be extremely profound. It risks the complete voluntary unraveling of privacy. Pressure from friends, employers, the community, and the government may exacerbate the trend. This service would require a database of human behavior of unprecedented depth and breadth. A breach could be the most significant of such an event ever. Our brains do not work like a computer retrieving data from a disk. Our memories can be corrupted. So if images can create false memories, it's not just our present and future reality that could collapse, it's also our past. Fake media could manipulate what we remember, effectively altering the past by seeding the population with false memories. Thank you, 1984, for calling this out way ahead of time. Deluged by a torrent of constant misinformation, people simply start to give up. This is common in areas where information is poor and thus assumed to be incorrect. However, the adoption of apathy to a developed society like ours is not a good path. If people stop paying attention to news, democracy becomes unstable. We have to remain critical and vigilant when it comes to the information we consume. If you're like me, you're probably wondering at this point, well, what about internet cats? Well, we can't worship false cats, people. This has just gone too far. So, some possible good case scenarios. Death is inevitable and universal, but the way to mourn our dear ones is not. In Japan, a robot may create a new way to mourn. This robot is supposed to look and sound like a loved one, so imagine the robot having a 3D mask of their face. Your loved one would have had a hand, or at least a face, in creating content for it before their passing. Imagine it saying, "I'm proud of you," or "You're such a smart child," as it follows you around the house. Hollywood has had this technology at its fingertips, but not at this low cost. So if they can create a great looking video with this technique, it'll change the demand for skilled editors over time. Actors are also having their likenesses digitally preserved so they can continue working long after they're dead. It could open up new opportunities, for instance, making movies with unknown actors and then superimposing famous celebrities onto them. Or including yourself in a video. Netflix offers a menu that says, "Who would you like to see as the star of this movie?" This could work for YouTube videos or even news channels. Studios could change actors based on their target market, like more Schwarzenegger for Austrians, or just being able to select anything and everything in the movie. Most likely, this will just generate revenue for the estates of long-dead actors by bringing them back to life. One day, you'll look up at yourself and see you on a billboard. Imagine a world where the ads you see as you surf the web include your friends and your family. While hyper-realistic or hyper-personalized advertising may come across as creepy today, it could be the norm in a few years. Your favorite clothing company could superimpose your face on a body that matches yours and convince you that it's worth trying out their new line of jackets. Sizer.me is a tool that scans your body, as seen in this video, to analyze the perfect fit for clothes. It can allow you to virtually try on garments. But imagine your actual body showing up in a targeted ad. This is not the future. This is actually happening right now. What about putting yourself into a video game? Some people like to portray alter egos, but others want to see themselves in the game. With 3D avatars, you can kill yourself over and over, or your boss in The Sims. Or you could watch yourself slap people with a fish in Hitman. Sarah Proc is a new text-to-speech tool that can synthesize voices. It's being licensed for a number of uses, notably for a radio journalist named Jamie Dupree, who lost his voice after losing it from a very severe illness. Not only does it make the capability to talk and sing accessible to all individuals, but this technology has the potential to change many industries.
I'm Jamie Dupree in Washington. Returning from his European trip, President Trump tweeted from Air Force One that there is a, quote, good chance of a deal with Mexico related to illegal immigration.
Of course, not everyone likes the synthesized voices so much. Some people said that it was weird, and some people said that they got used to it. There's that uncanny valley making an appearance here. Some other interesting ideas. Anonymity. For example, removing the stigma with going to therapy, where you wouldn't have to show your own face. One idea from YouTube user Deepfakes, who I contacted during when I was putting this together, said that using models in video interviews to remove gender or racial bias when hiring is another good idea, and I agree. In addition to zebrification, researchers have used GANs to modify the weather conditions in a video, converting a breezeless day to a windy day. They've aligned blooming and dying flowers, and they've synthesized a convincing sunrise from videos on the web. The biggest gain that we'll probably see in the near term is that deepfake learning will lead to better GANs. GANs create realistic images for AI to learn from. So GANs can be used to actually generate fake content to train better GANs. This is AI learning from AI output. So GANs are frequently used to compete against each other. In one instance, this was done to create synthetic MRIs of brains showing tumors. These tumor images can help create training data for algorithms to learn how to spot tumors and actually get better at doing so. In terms of content validation, deepfakes are a total arms race. In-person communication is still reliable for now. Digital watermarks could be used potentially. Existing digital signature tech could be used to authenticate videos like emails. Holograms in place of video? I don't know. What about authentication via crypto hashing and blockchain? Digitally signing using asymmetric cryptography still relies on protecting the private key, which is the same problem we have today. Adding digital signatures to cell phone cameras would also do nothing to address common sources of false video narrative, since the issue is not whether footage is real or fake, or whether the footage captures the entire situation, and whether the description assigned to it represents what the video actually depicts. Digital signatures also would not prevent staged videos in which lookalike actors or real locations and materials are used to create false scenes that are difficult to distinguish in the poor quality of a phone camera. The truth could be sitting right in front of us, and cryptographically secure from the public as it could be, and we'd all be stubbornly refused to see it because of a buzzword like blockchain. TruePic is an interesting example of validation. It verifies an image hasn't been altered yet and watermarks it with a timestamp, geocode, URL, and other metadata. TruePic servers store a version of the photo assigned with a 6-digit code and its URL plus a spot on the blockchain. Users can post their TruePic images in apps to prove they're not catfishing someone on a dating site, selling something broken on an e-commerce site, etc. Viewers can visit the URL watermarked on the photo to compare it to the vault save version to ensure it hasn't been modified after the fact. Like spotting phishing emails, education and awareness is ultimately our best defense right now. How about a story? In 1983, at the peak of the Cold War, Stanislav Petrov was a Soviet lieutenant colonel stationed at a bunker close to the Soviet capital. He was monitoring the early warning system for detecting nuclear missile strikes from the US. September 26, 1983, the bunker systems alerted Petrov of a missile launch from Montana. The USS and USSR were following the mutually assured destruction doctrine. If the Americans were to launch a nuclear attack, the Soviets would have retaliated with a massive counterattack, ensuring the annihilation of both countries. Had Petrov alerted his superiors, he would have started World War III. But instead, Petrov correctly recognized that it was unlikely for the US to actually launch only 5 missiles, as he was seeing. It was a bug. He reported it as a computer malfunction instead of an attack. He was right, and World War III was avoided thanks to the critical judgment of a man. Another scenario, known as diplomacy manipulation, is when a malicious entity uses deepfakes to create the belief that an event has occurred to influence geopolitics. A few years in the future, say 2025, the situation between North Korea and the US is still tense. CNN receives a video from an anonymous source. Kim Jong-un appears to be in a secured facility with his generals. This footage has never been seen before. Korean interpreters are called. The supreme leader is demanding the launch of a nuclear missile strike. In a matter of hours, the video gets to the Oval Office, and intelligence can't confirm or deny the authenticity, even by consulting additional sources. The US president must act. He orders a preventative attack. The war starts. But was the video evidence enough to justify such a decision? This is information warfare. How will we fight state-sponsored and targeted disinformation and propaganda in the era of deepfakes? If society wants to avoid the worst of these consequences, we have to take action now to protect the misuse of these technologies. So a multi-pronged technology is required. Clarifying existing laws and their impact on creation of faking applications or the production and distribution of fake images. Platforms will have to decide whether to be accountable for their users' content and when. Improving counter-technology to look deeper at images to identify signals that the image is fake. Strong anti-deepfake policies in all media agencies. Better education of young people about the consequences of misusing this technology. And of course, being skeptical of everything we see and hear. Media occasionally gets it wrong. The AP deleted a tweet about a giraffe being born because it included the photo of the wrong giraffe. But you won't be able to trust any media broadcaster you consider reputable if you cannot rely on the judgment for discerning real and fake sources of information. So I leave you with this video. Sorry. Does anything matter if nothing is real? By remaining skeptical as a society, we will likely ultimately reach agreement collectively about the authenticity of content. If we opt to take the blue pill instead, the story ends, you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. That's why we need to take the red pill to stay in Wonderland and find out how deep this rabbit hole goes. All we can hope for is the truth, nothing more. Thank you. So I think we have time for questions. Yeah, okay. Yes. So the question is about live streaming. Is there any kind of concern about that? Yeah, I think there is. If you can do the deep video puppetry, which is not changing the original face and just manipulating the facial features like the Obama video, if you can do that in real time, you can do that with somebody sitting at a computer, either using voice synthesizers to create the voice via text, or you could have somebody doing an impression. So there's no reason to believe that any video, whether recorded or real time, is not being faked unless you can detect it. Thank you. Did you have a question? Yeah. So the question is about stock manipulation. I see you. How can this be used to manipulate stocks? I mean, I think that defamation of a CEO, something like that, showing them, cheating on somebody or shaking hands with, Kim Jong-un or something like that kind of stuff can lead to real consequences for people. Yes. Right. So the comment was about if there was an incoming missile, we'd have other things that would detect it rather than one individual system. And that's true. That's why I think that the multi-pronged approach of like having somebody think about what's happening, not just having computers react, is important. Being able to detect it in the first place is still a real challenge. So in terms of this technology, with missiles, yeah, we have some other things. So yeah, I mean, World War III may not start because of a deep fake, but it's possible. Yes. Yeah, the question is about tabloids and if this will further their income and make it harder for the people that are fighting the tabloids already. I mean, I think that, that with tabloids, people already kind of know not to trust them, that there is a bit of mistrust there already. Definitely not enough, and definitely not everyone. I'm confident that they are already producing fake photos, if not videos. And I mean, there's all kinds of things online. I don't know, but we don't know who's producing them. We don't know if it's the tabloids that's producing. It's probably somebody in a basement somewhere that's making these and trying to sell them. And yeah, they're gonna make a quick buck off of it if they put it up in the first 24 hours. They're gonna get a lot of hits on that. Because we don't have a good way to disprove it. How do you disprove that somebody wasn't, doing something completely inappropriate in their bedroom? How do you say that wasn't me if there's a video of it? We just don't have, that technology or capability, and people aren't going to believe you. They're going to believe the first thing they see, and then everything after that doesn't matter. That's what I think. Yes. Yeah, the comment was about having a public and transparent effort to build detection technologies. I think that's true. I think that there's been a lot of media coverage about deepfakes and talking about a lot of the bad things that can happen. I tried to talk about some of the good things we could do, but the media has been covering it really well because they have to deal with it on probably a daily basis. I think that the government talking about it a little bit more. They've put out some the Israeli military put out a warning, and I don't know how useful that is. Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be designing something that's cryptographically going to track this stuff, it should be an open forum of well-known researchers and cryptographic specialists that can add to that and make sure that it's going to be the best that it can be. Absolutely, yeah. And as an open system, I agree. Yes. Right. So the question is about accountability for people that are reporting false things or that have reported false things. I think that really falls to the policy of the media organization. We already have lots of, we already have, I don't think that that's going to be, unless we change CDA 230, I don't think that government's going to be very effective in this. I don't even know if I want government to be involved in this, frankly, but I think that it comes down to the individual sources. Like, do you trust CNN versus The Onion? Like, which one? Like, we know that one of them is going to have some false stuff or a lot of false stuff, whereas the other one might only have false stuff once in a while. And in terms of accountability, you can print a retraction, but if it happens enough times, eventually that that journalist or that reporter or whoever's doing the work of putting that out there is going to get a bad name in the industry. They're going to ruin their careers, and it will almost take care of itself. But that takes some time. It's not going to happen the first time unless it's a huge thing that goes crazy. But like the Nancy Pelosi thing, that started on it was uploaded to one site and it just went everywhere because blogs and news outlets will repost things from other blogs and news outlets without actually checking into it. And I think, and hopefully the public will start to become more aware as that, like who's trustable. It's just like in our industry, we know that there are certain people who put out good content, they do things, they're trustable, they're, we trust them to do tests on our stuff without stealing our information, that kind of thing. So I think it really comes down to reputation and policy of the news outlet. Yes. So the question is about the success of Star Wars leading to eventually not needing actors and actresses, and what the concern is there. I have no concern with that. I don't make any money from those movies, so I think that anytime there is a new technology like toll booth, like automated toll booths, there's going to be people who bear the brunt of that new technology, and their jobs are obsolete. So toll booth operators, for example, or key grips, or whatever the thing is. I think eventually we'll be able to completely put out movies and content and games and other things that have no actors. But will we want to see them? Will we enjoy them as much as seeing an actual person that, like everybody loves, Tom Cruise movies or whatever, right? Like people go to see Tom Cruise, they don't go to see an image generated. But, who knows, in like 50 or 100 years, people may not care about that anymore. They may not have ever been exposed to it. So, yeah, I mean, you could make anything, anytime, anywhere, very cheaply.
All right, April, I hate to interrupt you.
no.
I believe you'll probably be available after for more questions. Okay, so if you guys have more questions or comments for April, catch her afterwards. Thank you very much. One more time for April Wright.